this is the thing, and this is what I've been really focusing on uh, in probably in the last year or so, in the lead up to like coming to the point to be able to explain this. Um, this idea of our empire getting more and more principled towards its organizing uh, factor of violence, getting more and more principled towards the use of force, um, is actually, as we're seeing this happen, and obviously it's terrible, and obviously it's, uh, a horrendous display of outright violence that we're seeing in a mass, uh, in a capacity that we haven't seen in a very long time. Um, it is a sign though of these empires putting themselves in a position to become uh, to be defeated or to dissolve, because this is the point. As empires become more violent, and if your empire's uh, only organizing principle for your empire, for your state, is violence and force, your state will then perpetually remain vulnerable to being captured by a more powerful force. This reliance on violence as a foundational principle is like it's like the call to the void. It's a self-destructive impulse, because there will always be someone more capable of greater violence. History shows this, like the Aztec and the Inca. They had much more violent social structures. That made them vulnerable. They were far more easily conquered compared to societies with adaptive structures like the nomadic or matriarchal societies of the Mohawk or the Plains people. These societies, they were eventually captured, but they had far more flexible and resilient forms of organization and thus resistance, which shows the dangers of relying solely on force and violence for your own state capacity. And historically, state and social structures were maintained through a combination of dominance, force, and violence. But these systems are also held up by elements of social care and mutual trust, and also a labor of love among people. And um, these softer elements help bind communities together. But in modern times, this labor of love no longer exists, which brings about this profound sense of alienation. People are now compelled to adhere to the constraints of social capital for their own personal advancement, which means they're failing to conform to these societal expectations, and that leads them to further alienation and a lack of self-care for themselves and for others. And this is all happening in the absence of a true mutual trust and care. People will deviate from the social norms and find themselves isolated with no one to assist them. That is why we have mental health issues in this world, because humanity is not wired to be doing what we're doing, but we're forcing people to do it. And when people become oriented to their material conditions rather than um, their conditions to love, their ability to love, their capacity and organizing principles for love and care, and the need for it, that when you switch those things, you will create a haywire society that is deeply, deeply disturbed. Um, so, with our organizing principle of society shifting towards violence and force, it fosters a view that it fosters a view of the world that sees it through our material domination. And this is where this comes from, where like if you're not participating in capitalism of the material domination of others, it's perceived as a lack of care or contribution to society. If you're not exploiting yourself or dominating others, you don't care. And this is this prevailing belief that if an individual is not actively involved in the capitalistic pursuit of exploitation, self exploitation, or domination, They are deemed indifferent to others. And that's the social alienation that comes in capitalism, is baked into it. It we used to be balanced by a system of care and trust. We are now balanced by a system of force and violence and domination.